Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Breyonna Pinkney. I am an electrical engineer. I'm actually now an operational systems engineer for Boeing, but I got my degree at Howard University in electrical engineering. So my job, I actually had to receive a security clearance that took a year and a half to receive, and I have been working at Boeing for about 7 months now.
Hi, I'm Tewa Kpulun, and I currently work at the Advanced Technology Center for Lockheed Martin Space in Palo Alto, California. My job is not under security clearance, but there are some things I cannot talk about here tonight or today. My background is I went to Vassar College and got my physics degree, and then I went to Howard to get my electrical engineering degree.
Hey everyone, I'm Jordan Stroman. I did my undergrad in physics at UNC, came to Howard, did my master's degree in EE. I graduated about 2.5 years ago, and now I'm working at Northrup Grumman. I've been there for about 2.5 years.
Hey everyone, I'm Kitty. I'm a Ph.D. I was a Ph.D. student at Harvard under Professor Dong-Hee Ham's lab, and I was probably one of the first students who first joined CIQM when CIQM was just founded. So I graduated in 2015, joined Intel as my first company, and then last February I joined Microsoft. Now I manage the team called The Garage at Microsoft, based in Silicon Valley. It's a kind of a program that drives the culture of innovation.
Okay, so coming out of college, I was really nervous about the Boeing interview. I had interviewed before when I was a freshman, but as a freshman, you don't have any internships. So they're kind of like, you're new, you're fresh, you just started college, come back to us your junior year. So at that time, I had interned at CIQM for 2 years, and I had interned at Intel. So I was able to have a little bit more experience under my belt when I interviewed.
I remember right off the back when I went to this career fair, sometimes, you pass out resumes, you talk to people, and it's sometimes you feel like you're making a connection, other times, the person is just kind of collecting resumes and, maybe not interested in hiring. But this career fair was, the companies were there, like with the intention of hiring. My advisor was there, and he knew someone at Northrop Grumman, and just did a connection. He said, "Hey, this was my grad student. You should give him a look, or just if you know someone, let's talk."
My first job actually was through a connection with CIQM. I was actually like you, sitting in the annual event. I think that was 2015 or 2014 when I was just about to graduate. And there was someone from Intel sitting in the industry panel, and I did a presentation. After the presentation, he came to me and asked me if I was graduating. So then I said, "Oh yeah, I am looking for jobs now." And so he offered to pass my resume around. So that was a really nice experience. He shared my resume within Intel, and because of my prior internship with IBM in silicon photonics, as well as my PhD work on plasmonic circuits, both are very relevant to the silicon photonics work at Intel. That was a very natural transition.
I thought my interview would require me to answer all technical questions, so I sat up all night long studying everything I knew about electrical engineering. That was not the interview process, okay? They wanted to know about who I was as a person, what were my experiences, how was I as a team player. A lot of the different projects that I work on now requires me to be in a team. So going into the interview and telling them all of the knowledge that I knew about electrical engineering and all the equations I knew was not the best idea, but instead falling into those experiences that I had when I was in undergrad and when I was in my internships is really what helped me to get the job that I have now.
So my interview process was quite similar to yours. So I had a phone interview with Lockheed, and so I had all my notes out on the table. I was prepared, I was ready, but they asked mainly about the research I was doing here with CIQM, and it was not as technical as you would think an electrical engineering job would require. So I would say I did not have a technical interview for my job, They asked questions about, they mainly wanted to know that I could start a project, figure out ways to do it, and then also get results and then present it in a very in a fashion where other people can understand it. So that was the main thing that they were looking for when I was being interviewed.
So they flew me there, and we did a whole day of interview. It's mostly technical. People in the team were very friendly, and they were just very curious about your work. So they asked me a lot about my PhD work, and I explained to them what I was doing in the lab. So because the skill set that I had was very relevant to what Intel's working on, that was kind of an exact match.
So we sat down, scheduled an interview, talked. They did a second interview, asked me questions of just what do you like, what are your interests, and based on what the work you've done, we think there's a place here you can find.
Don't hide your hobbies. So I think when I was a student, I used to just always emphasize on the technical skills that I had, and then at the very end I have I like to play the piano, I like to paint, and I like put it there. Hopefully someone who has the same hobby will like it, but actually no, that's actually part of who I am. I need to show people that this is a complete me.
Another piece of advice is that you're the prize. A lot of the there's so many different companies that you could go to, and they know that. So really understanding your worth and realizing what you bring to the table, because they know what you bring to the table. So being willing to be comfortable with asking questions like, how much are you going to pay me? What is the work-life balance like? Will I enjoy the job that I'm doing? Do other employees enjoy the job that they're doing? What is your diversity there? There's so many questions at the interview I didn't ask because I was a little bit nervous and I didn't realize that, how worthy I was at the time. But when I realized that I had other options and opportunities, I was able to be just a little bit more comfortable. It was a very awkward conversation because $5 million a year. I used Google. I saw what is reasonable. Just figuring out what is the reasonable price range and salary for this type of position. I wanted to make sure it was something that was reasonable for the area and just a smart decision for my own behalf, but still nothing that's too far-fetched.
I was not asked that question, so the salary came with the job acceptance, and then I negotiated for more after. So it was like a negotiation back and forth, and I got more.
Before I was offered the job, I'd already looked up sort of the salary for that position, and then they made an offer that was slightly above that, and I said, "Oh, okay, well, that worked."
At some point, they're gonna ask you, "What are you making right now?" So they always want to understand what level you're at, and then so definitely looking up on Glassdoor, or just search online for the number. Look at the average in your geolocation at that level. You know what's the average. You know you need to get above the average.
I am working a 12-hour shift, night shift, so 7 p.m., 7 a.m., and then it switches 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And that was a question I did not ask in my interview. I did not ask about the work-life balance. I didn't ask what my hours would be. So I was so excited about the job, but I was a little bit staying back about, questions like, what are the hours here? So now that I know that is the first question I will be asking moving forward.
Can I go to your, if some offices maybe say, hey, can I do an on-site visit? I think that's a good one. A lot of places probably wouldn't do that, but just to be able to go and get firsthand experience, I think is always a good idea.
I should have asked the question about cost of living in Silicon Valley. I feel like that's one thing I did not do. as you might know, Kitty, it's very expensive to live out there. So, but Lockheed tries to match your salary to different tech companies in the area as well, so that they're also staying competitive. And then there's one thing that Breyonna did say: you are the prize to these companies. So as long as you're a good worker and you do good work, you can pretty much negotiate for a higher salary and to get promoted if you want.
I was able to do a accelerating hiring program. So I had the opportunity to fly out to Seattle at Boeing and choose the job. I got to literally choose my job, choose my salary, and choose my location from 120 different choices. That is something I definitely would recommend, is to look at the different programs that they have for new hires. A lot of these companies, they have programs that will allow you to just have an advantage. They know you're coming straight out of college. You may not know exactly what you want to get into, so they give you nice descriptions. You can meet with the managers and just kind of test the waters before you decide you want to make a decision.
So when I did get to Lockheed, I kind of you get to pick the group you want to be a part of, because electronics engineers just mean you're an electronic engineer, and they decide where, or your manager decides where to put you based on what you tell them that you want. So I was fortunate enough to go into the GLM group, Geostationary Lightning Mapper group, which is a very small group in Lockheed. And because it's a small group, you get more responsibilities even as a new hire. So they give you a period of 6 months to get to know the team and what it is that you're going to be doing and how you can contribute. But after those 6 months, the opportunities are open to you, and you have to say, yes, I want to be in charge of X, Y, and Z. And then you build up your resume. And it's quite interesting to get to work on hardware and things that are actually going into space.
Just to kind of piggyback on what Breyonna and Tewa were saying, it wasn't this is what you're going to do. It was very much of we want to find you work that you want to work on. So they had a rotational program, not even, okay, here's your position. It was come in, try this position for a year or 6 months, move to another one that you basically pick, try that for 6 or 8 months and keep that going. Not for forever, until you find the work that you want to do. And I thought that was pretty good, because you often think you know what the work's going to look like, but once you get there, it's a little different, and you're also just trying to also feel out the people you're working with. Do you like working with them? Do you like there's always some sort of bureaucracy you got to sort of maneuver, and so getting to just try those out is a really good opportunity.
Because I love doing art and science, I tried combining the two. It's a question that you have to ask yourself constantly. Are you experiencing ikigai? So this is a Japanese concept. Look it up online. It's ikigai. So you find a Venn diagram of 4 categories: what you love, what you can be paid for, what you're good at, and what the world needs. So if you are missing any of the 4, you're not getting to the right point. I had times in my career that I was doing what the world needs, what I'm good at, what I could be paid for, but I wasn't doing something I love. I was doing very well, but there was a sense of emptiness. So yeah, just look at that diagram and see where you are there and try to get to the ikigai point.
I love the people I work with. I don't really have supervisors per se, but the chief scientists on our project, they're on the list of the most brilliant people I've met. And just by working with them and having them teach me what they know, because they're preparing for the next generation, I'm very fortunate that I got into a project where I found that. And then also getting to just work on hardware, and like I said earlier, you work on things that go into space. I touch something that's in space right now, and I think that's pretty cool.
I love the fact that there's the opportunity to grow where I am. I am not a person that likes to stay still. I need more. So my job has lots of different certifications that are not only hard to get into, but they're transferable once you get them. So if I wanted to change programs, I can get as high as I want to go.
Our company goes all the way from just the integrated circuit level to designs to, full systems and advanced software. So I like what I'm working on now, but 5 years later, I can move still within the same company, and room for growth is always, I think, and it's exciting.
I love how technical it is. I feel like I do a lot of work that I never thought I could do. So it's really, I inspire myself in the work that I do. And they pay for you to go to graduate school. So that's really exciting for me. I get to start graduate school sometime next year, and it's really helpful that the company has all of these different benefits that can help you while you're trying to figure out what you want to do and where you want to go.
Lockheed's very flexible on work-life balance. You can come into work when you want, as long as you do what you need to do and you are there for meetings when you're needed. I can go to work at 10 a.m. if I want and leave early, but as long as I've done my work and I've contributed to my team, that's fine. And we also have days in testing where it's 24/7 testing and you have to be at work from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. So it's very flexible in that matter. They're very big on people taking personal time off to take vacations because they want you to come back refreshed. They don't want people who are overworked working on very expensive equipment, because that's when you run the risk of having people messing up the equipment, and that costs you way much more. So they rather their employees take a break than to break something.
There's time where, okay, we need you to do this work, but they're also clearly allocating time for people to have their own ideas, work on them independently, make your own team, and build your own lane within the company, not just this is what you have to do.
I hate to be put in a box. So I like the environment at Microsoft right now. It has a lot of freedom. It's a very good environment that provides people platforms to grow.
I thought in grad school I had a lot of control over what I was doing, and I think you lose some of that in industry.
I really enjoy what I'm doing, and it all comes down to what makes you happy. And if being in academia, being in the lab, having control over your own project is making you happy, then continue to do that.
I didn't go to grad school. I went straight from undergrad to Boeing. And I think that's because I just needed more time. I didn't want to spend another few years studying something I wasn't sure about. I just needed a little bit more time to figure out what path I wanted to take. And in the meantime, still have a nice job where I can, get my security clearance, still develop some skills, develop some experience, and, spruce up my resume a bit before I decide to go back to graduate school. My mentor gave me great advice. He said, don't think about what you want to do for the rest of your life. Think about what you want to do right now, and those building blocks will build itself.
While I was doing my grad program, I got to a certain point where I asked myself, is this what I wanted to continue to do? Do I want to continue another 3-4 years to do a Ph.D. in my project? And the interest and the passion that I saw most of my peers have for it, that I saw most people here have for it, I did not share that same feeling. I liked what I was doing, I liked the science, but I wanted to do something that was a little bit less theoretical and something that was now going to technology that's helping people now. So that's why I chose the industry route, and I'm very happy that I did that.
I think I had a very good experience during my grad school because I was working everything from scratch to the end. Like I did a theoretical proof of the circuit structure, did a simulation of it, designed the circuit, went to the clean room, made it, designed the experiment, tested them, wrote papers. So everything from beginning to the end. That's like a whole pipeline. That's a great experience. But what I learned in industry is how from there, after publishing a paper, get it into a product, getting out there, getting to something people are using. At some point, you may want to go back to academia because you get paid to do something that you're so interested to do. And you can build your own team. You can have people working with you. So if I were coming back to academia, I would run it like a startup. Wherever you are, you have to advocate for resources. In the company, you need to get funding for your whole year, the budget for your whole year's spending. You have to be not just a great engineer or scientist, you have to be a good marketer.
Most of the projects that the ATC gets, you have to write proposals for to get the customer's approval to do it. So for instance, our project, our customer is NASA and NOAA. And so when they said we want a satellite that monitors the environment from space, I think Lockheed, we put in a proposal, and I think Northrup put in a proposal. So there's like other companies you put in proposals and you're kind of competing to get the deal or to get the project. So it's basically, instead of fighting for grant money, you're fighting for your clients or your customers' money, and you're trying to win the bid.
Here at CIQM, we had a lot of presentations about how to give presentations, which was really helpful, really important. Back to what Tewa was saying, you have to fight for your funding. You have to, put your work out there and share what you're doing to other people and do it confidently, or people are not going to buy into it or they're not going to be receptive to it. So just learning how to present, learning how to get people's attention and keeping people woke while you're sharing your information was really, really important.
Thank you for those presentations on how to give presentations. Very useful. Because any project we work on, any test you have to present it to the customer and the client saying, this is what we did, these are the results, and this is what we want to do next. And if they don't buy into that, then they say no, and you have to reevaluate and go back to them.
In college, I was a little bit of a procrastinator. That is not helpful. There are a lot of deadlines, and it's just really important to not only meet those deadlines, but to execute and to execute flawlessly and to be confident about what you're doing and know, fully about the projects that you're working on, that you're sharing with other people. So it was just really important to learn that skill. I found that out pretty early, so I'm not still struggling with it. But in college, you have a little bit more freedom to do so, but not in the industry.
One thing that I think that I did not learn necessarily from college is basically that I wish I had learned before going into industry is how much, not necessarily all the politics, but the amount of paperwork that comes with engineering in industry. You think, oh, I'm just gonna go work on this product and I'm gonna go in, do my test, get it done. But when you're doing something for a public entity like NASA or NOAA, everything comes with the paperwork. The last screw you put on that instrument has to be recorded and noted down. So, and even if you have problems, you have to go back to the board, ask them for approval to do stuff, to fix it. Even though it's something that you can do within that day, you still have to prepare a presentation. This is what I want to do, why I want to do it. So having to be patient, that was something I wish I had learned while I was here, because when we're here, we have an idea, we tell our advisors, and it's like, all right, go to the lab, go try it out. You don't have to write a whole report to come with it before you can try it. So that's one thing that did not have.
There was some software that I got exposed to just being in grad school and how to use it, how to automate it, but it's also a skill that I think I should have learned more of, because I see just how valuable it is. One of the first things I did was just work on being able to automate a test, right? And certain people just don't have that skill and they will struggle there. Then there are certain people who are good at working with that software on the back end and getting that software to do certain processes and automate that, and simulate that, and run hundreds of thousands of their simulations. When I mean work smart, I think what I'm saying is a stronger software background, I think, is important to couple with whatever you're doing in your physics or your science, and knowing the science but also having strong software skills, I think is valuable.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I feel like there are three things I want to teach my future kids when they're at a young age: material science, particle physics, and automation. So just putting it out there. At the end of the day, it's not about technology, it's about the people. I think most of the time, coming from the technology side, we focus on the work, the technical work, which is good. I like that, and I like the purity of it. But the truth is, you're actually building something for others. So I think it's more important to realize who you're helping, what worldwide problem you're addressing, and you have a good cause to build the technologies for it.
It's all about networking. It is about networking and taking advantage of just knowing, being in the same room, in the same space as others that you may not have wanted to speak to or known to speak to or had the opportunity to speak to. So really putting yourself out there. Take that risk to meet and to network and to talk to people and see what you all have in common. Don't be afraid to just see how you can fit in each other's lives if that's possible.